So I know exactly what every single one of you is thinking. And I don't have the answer to it either. But also, well, hold on, you. No. Get that out of my head, because that thought's horrible. I'm not going to repeat that one, no. But as it is, welcome everybody. This is a special session of BCC. You might notice a little bit of a different layout here. You might notice a little bit of a different emblem here as well. We've upgraded a little bit, I guess you could say. We've traded in our gruff and Sudoku-hating assassin for a delightfully artistic raccoon.
Hiya.
If he rolls better, can we keep him?
I mean, yes, but I'm not going to keep the trash cans around so we can pick through.
That's fair.
So, this is something a little bit different here because for the next couple of weeks we are going to be minus dark. So, instead of trying to scramble and figure out how to write a character off, this is more going to be a sort of like a roundtable discussion type of deal on the character creation process, both for PCs, NPCs, and a little bit of world building as well, which is eventually going to lead to a little bit of a one-shot-ish campaign that we're going to run next week, because again, we're minus Dark Falls again next week. So we're going to have a little fun with this here. And because we like the whole fifth character mentality, we like people, we want to give people more of a shot. You did hear the voice. That is the voice behind the art. That is Chameleonice, or Chameleonice, whatever you want to pronounce it. We're going to call him Cham, but Chameleon. You take your pick. It's pronunciation, you know.
You've been saying it right.
That's you. The other three regular cast of characters you know, and I don't want to say love because I really don't want to put that onto anybody. But we have, thankfully, two of the three are doing what's good for everybody and going cameraless. So thank you to Crim and OPT, or CrimsonAvix and OPTLawyer, for going cameraless. And unfortunately for everybody, in addition to having to deal with my face, you also have to deal with Noraystra's face.
Yeah, I'm about to go and plug in my camera now that you said that.
Yeah, I won't be cameraless the whole time. I'm just snacking right now, so.
Well, I tried. I can't promise any more than that. But hey, I tried. I'm helping!
But are you really helping?
Oh, well, as soon as someone else's camera turns on, I'll turn mine off, so I'll definitely...
When you turn your camera off, does your mic go on mute too?
No.
Then you're not helping.
Oh.
Well, you're no fun. So, character creation as a whole. I mean, if you take a look at it, there are multiple different ways you can go about building characters. You can build it from I want to play X. You can build it from I want to play someone who's dealt with X. There's all different ways to go about doing it. And that's the beauty of tabletop style games. In this discussion specifically, we're going to be talking about like the superhero genre, but it applies to Dungeons and Dragons. It applies to a vampire. It applies to Game of Thrones. You pick your tabletop RPG, and the concept still applies.
Note that there's also the method of I want to create a character that the DM's going to hate.
I've done that
You
before.
can always go that route too.
Sorry,
Right.
OPT.
But that's one of those things where you do it to prove a point, or you're just a jerk, Krim. Oh, did I call you out on that? I'm sorry.
You actually like my character though.
I do. I'm also an odd GM in the fact that I've let certain people change character designs 3 or 4 times. Nora?
I mean, fine.
Hey, just because Nora wanted to change a robot Anton into Earth Caliber.
Right?
No, that's fair. So, I guess, to start with, I mean,
it's the same Anton. He's just had some issues.
Haven't we all? So I guess where I'll start with is I'll ask the question here for those who've played more tabletop games. What's your method for going about sort of building characters. I mean, we've definitely seen, my NPCs, and there's definitely, everyone sort of has their sort of unique flair that they sort of do with their character creation. But so I guess I'll start with you, OPT. What's your thought process behind character building, and especially when you're starting off with a new campaign and you don't really have a lot of information about that? It's just that, hey, we're starting a game, build a character.
Normally I pick something that I want to do. Like, so for Lutra, for instance, I started off with, number one, I'm sick of playing human characters because they're just kind of boring to me. And number two, I wanted to do something water-based because I hadn't done that before. So I thought about it for about 5 seconds and said, otter! Yes, that! And then after that, I was basically... after that, it's kind of building around the theme that I want to go with. And then kind of figuring the character out as I go along. I've played games before where I've just grabbed one of the pre-made characters, and I gotta tell you, I've never felt like those were anything more than just a straight-up dungeon delve, because they weren't. So, but normally I just want to play something that I haven't done before, at least as a starting point, or at least I try to.
No, and you're definitely right. I've had the pleasure of playing pre-generated characters before, and to me, pre-generated characters, you're 100% correct. They definitely have that sort of dungeon crawl-esque feel. But a big trap I notice a lot of people fall in, especially when it comes to pre-generated characters, and even not. And this goes to, and I don't want to crack on D&D too much, but the alignment system, because people tend to think of the alignment system specifically as gospel and not as a character mechanism. Because how many times have you been playing in a D&D group, for example, I'm going to go back to that, and you have the paladin who's not playing lawful good, they're playing lawful stupid. And what I mean by that is you have to be lawful good, but when it comes to the concept of lawful good, it's what is your character's belief system? What is his laws? What does he believe is good? And that's what lawful good means. You can still play a character like that with shades of gray, but you have to have more than just I want to run with a sword and smash goblins and slice goblins. You have to do more than that. So the alignment system, while great as a sort of lean you into it tool, to me, a lot of people fall into the trap of towing the line for the alignment system almost too much.
If I can input on that, I actually feel like I understood how to properly play lawful good the best when I started looking at how to play a lawful evil character. Because I don't like playing evil, but when I started thinking about, well, if there's a person who's evil, but he's following his own moral code, how does he stay evil and follow a moral code? It's oh, wait a second. It's about almost like having a compass, even if it may not be everybody else's compass.
Exactly.
So that made things make a lot more sense.
Right. And that's a big thing is understanding your character and ultimately your character's motivation. The same concept can go for NPCs as well. But to get back to the initial question, Krim, I'm going to go to you next here. What's your thought process when it comes to character creation?
Well,
Did I just lose everybody?
I can't hear
okay,
him
no.
at all.
I can't hear anything.
I don't know why.
There we go.
There we go.
And that's
It
my
must have been
philosophy.
my connection because, well, we're running video and my computer hates it. Anyway, so for me, one of the big things is I kind of want my character to avoid a basic stereotype. I mean, now when creating characters, of course, we're always going to draw influence from things we know, whether it's stories, games, whatever. But if I create a character and I'm going to bring in stereotypes, I want it to be a hybrid. I just don't want it to be an exact clone of anything. So what I'll do is I'll sit there and I'll think, okay, what is the motivation going to be behind my character? And that's the basis for everything. And before I even start delving into powers, delving into their build, delving into what weapons they carry, I start on who is the character. Because if I have a character that is a lone wolf, keeps himself very introverted, the last thing he's going to do is be carrying a bastard sword leading the charge against every single enemy that exists. So that's, and a lot of it is based off the fact that I ran a lot of D&D before actually starting Mutants and Masterminds and other stuff more recently. So there were always, like, the alignment that you were talking about. Alignment was always one of the first things I chose, so I knew where my character's motivation was coming from. And sort of understood their thought process, because if I don't understand the character's thought process and I don't really understand their motivations, then I'm not really going to know how to build them in a way that I'll be able to carry that on through the role playing of the entire campaign. And that's sort of what it was with Phantasm. Is Phantasm was originally supposed to be someone who Phantasm died. Gale, as a person, died, and has no idea why he's still alive. But he knows that he is still alive, and there has to be a purpose behind that. So his whole moral compass is he's going to go through and try to do whatever he can to make sure that good, and I mean, I know this is very stereotypical and very cliche, but he wants to make sure that the good is what is thriving in the world. And he has very little trust for anyone who seems that they may be jeopardizing it. That's why we've seen him have run-ins with Casey and run-ins with all these different people, because he believes that what they're doing may not end up ultimately the best for the population as a whole.
I mean, and you brought up a great thing to know. Am I the only one hearing myself second time here? I mean, I know I'm that good, but I don't think anyone wants to hear me twice. But as I was saying, you brought up a good point there with the concept of motivation. And from a GM's perspective, understanding a character's motivation is a great thing to know, because it allows me as a GM to do things that you sort of can plan for the reactions. So if you know that what your character's motivation are, what their moral compass is, as a GM, it allows you to sort of personalize the encounters a little more, because you know exactly what that character is going to do, why they're going to do it. And if there's a dramatic shift in their motivation, you know that it's been building up and building up. So having the characters who you know, and even from the beginning, you know their motivations. Sometimes you're going to have, and I'm not going to single you out here, Nora, on this one, because, Dark was the same way, but sometimes you have people who've never played a tabletop game before. And I'm going to sort of bring this over to you here. And when the first 3 or 4 sessions that we played, you didn't really know sort of what you were doing from the character side of things with Anton. So from your perspective, you were sort of, you said, hey, this is what I want to do. Can we do it? and then you sort of built the character abilities first, and then the character itself afterwards. Now, having gone through all of the, I don't want to say the iterations, but having gone through from where you started to where we are now, what can you say you've learned, not necessarily about building the character's abilities, but building a character in general?
Yeah, so you're definitely right. This being my first session, I've now built 3 characters technically, all the same Anton. But I came into this thinking, very much the way I like to play traditional RPGs, MMORPGs. I play a tank class usually, even in games like Overwatch. I tend to play the tank, and that's kind of where I started. Nice heavy armor, the ability to interpose, take on attacks from my teammates. And it was a real learning experience. As we moved on, I've kind of learned that the tank is a great thing to have, but it doesn't suit this environment really well. And so that's kind of where we kind of moved a little less tanky when we added the Earth Amulet, and a little bit more kind of abrasiveness. And now with the full transition to Anton with the Excalibur, we've moved a much more aggressive Anton, a much more still very honor and in that paladin-y kind of way. But through the process, I've learned more about how I play games, but also about kind of what I want to do with my next character, how I want to play it, and just kind of those. It's been a great learning experience.
And I mean, to me, that's what I like to hear is, because people who've played these games before, we come back to play them for a reason. We love playing these games. To hear someone who's never played it before to come back and say, I want to keep doing this, that's awesome. So, all right, so now, for those of you who are watching this, we have sort of the Cham being the new guy, but we've interacted with Cham on several occasions. So I'm very curious in this because I don't know the answer to this question, never having played an RPG or tabletop RPG with you. What side of the character building spectrum do you fall on?
You say a spectrum, like there's
Well,
different areas.
Right, because if you hear what OPT said, he's like, I think of something I want to build first. I wanted to play a water sort of, and then he went for the that. It was sort of like the generic. Prim went I build the character's concept and their motivations first, and then build their power. So there's sort of the outside in method. There's the inside out method, which is basically go broad and then go specific, or start specific and then go broad.
I gotcha. I guess what I would fall in that spectrum would probably be the probably more of Crim's method, although I bounce around. Like, when I make up a character, unsurprisingly, I think up kind of how they might look first. Like, I think in my head, like what would be kind of a cool character concept? Like, what would he or she look like? Or who would look neat to me? And I also think, like, who would be a neat character that I would want to play in an RPG, like a console RPG? But I also, when I start narrowing that down, I started thinking to myself, what would be a good story I would like to tell with this character? And I start figuring out my idea of I'd like to play this kind of a character, and I build up their abilities from there. For instance, I had a Pathfinder character I made, and the central idea I had is I wanted to have somebody who was a hunter in the woods, and he hunted down different creatures. He had a vendetta against somebody, but I wanted him to be raised by minotaurs. And I wanted him to actually like minotaurs, but he's looking for one of them, and so he started hunting them. I thought that sounds like a really fun concept, but it's what can I do with that? And so it's okay, Ranger allows me to choose a foe, so sweet, I'll center around that. And I started thinking well, he's probably lived out on his own for this long, he probably would do this, he'd have this kind of knowledge, and then I start building the character's profile up from there, so I see where things fit.
I love the concept of, I was raised by minotaurs, and now I want to kill all of them. Except my family, you guys are good.
Oh no, his family abandoned him, so he wanted to kind of find them.
So what you're saying is you created a ranger that had an insatiable lust for steak. Gotcha.
Yeah, that works.
Steak.
Steak is delicious.
It is.
Yeah, to answer the question, I definitely fall more on the RP character side of the spectrum than I do on the ability side of the spectrum. To me, a tabletop game is about telling a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely want to be able to tell a story. Now, I'm not saying that you can't tell a story by creating characters in whichever way you want to, but to me, the way I think, I definitely want to, like Crimson, like you said a little bit, Jam, I want to know what's my character doing, why are they here, why should we care, like, and more importantly, like especially for a game that's being broadcast like these ones are, why should the people watching or listening care? And to me, if you can have a character
Teach?
I think we lost him.
Aw. I really wanted to know what he was going to say.
I know.
We may never know.
So, yes. Hold on. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're having some Discord difficulties. But that's alright. Oops.
Think he's coming back.
I think so.
Now I know why you guys complain about Discord so much.
That's right. And Discord is like
I-
just off. Okay, here we go.
Ooh!
Oh, hi, Nora.
That's not better.
That isn't. So anyway, kind of keep the discussion going here really quickly. Let's see, where can we bounce off of that?
Well, we talked about character creation, so to
Right.
speak. Oh,
and one thing about, for me, like, I don't tend to think about story until after I have the character, sort of.
and that makes sense.
Right. Because, like, I want to have the character first. Like, I want to at least know what my character's going to do first before I get into too much about, like, the story I want to tell. If only because the big issue I've got is I want to make sure, like, I want to know, I want to base what my character's story is going to be off of what he's going to do. And most of the characters I've done, like, a absolutely lying shyster, I didn't have his story created in my head until I created the character. And after that, I'm like, okay, cool, I've got this really cool looking thing, now what do I do with it?
Now you break my game.
Right. Yeah, I did that. Multiple times.
But I hear what you're saying, and I feel the same way in the sense that, like, I actually, like, I talked about, like, creating a story and, like, what story I would like to make, but I always have the caveat in my mind, like, it's a story I would like to make, but when the game starts, the character still kind of builds into the world. Like, the story is a starting point for me to figure out who this person is.
Right.
Then once the ball gets rolling, you kind of morph with what you got.
Indeed. Alright, ladies and gents, we're going to try something here real quick to get everything fixed here. Let's do this real quick. 1 second, everybody.
Hey, we're all back.
There we go.
We exist.
Sorry about that. Our voice talking service of choice decided to do what it normally does. And this is actually much worse because now I have a giant Nora in the middle of my screen.
Really, nothing shifted for me.
Yeah, I see. I've been seeing Nora all night here.
I have a large crim.
And At least there's just one of me this week.
That's true. So, what part of
For
my
now.
little speech did I get cut off on?
I think you got cut off on the part where you were going to explain your entire mindset.
Yeah.
Well,
You're
I
about
kind
to
of
reveal
missed
all your
what-
worlds.
I kind of missed what Nora said, but I had actually something I wanted to add on to it.
Well, then go right ahead.
So I know you asked Nora about like how he built Anton's abilities and then sort of developed the character. And I actually wanted to say that, one good thing about creating the character first, like I do, is that even if the character sort of becomes stale in terms of how I feel with combat and everything, which at a point Spectre did. I felt there was a big wall that I was hitting with Spectre in terms of how I felt his combat was going, what I could do, and where I could grow that. That it's much better to have a character that you can have go through a shift to rebuild their abilities, but keep their motivation the same, rather than having to change the character altogether. And I think that's one good reason to have a good, solid story behind your character, is because then at least there's some sort of consistency there.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think with Anton, we've kind of done that, where there wasn't a story, there was a character built. And as we went forward, the character developed himself. And then, like you said, ran into combat blocks, ran into things that were just not really effective in combat. And that's where the changes came in, is when the character kind of started to flatline in either the RP sessions or the character session or the combat sessions, and we moved him forward with some of these new abilities and events.
Yeah. So to sort of like recap what I was saying before we decided to go all crazy is I'm in the same boat as I want to create the character first, the personality and the soul behind the character, because to me, tabletop gaming first and foremost is about telling a story. If I want to go do a dungeon crawl, I'll go do a couple of Greater Rifts playing Diablo 3 and I'll be perfectly happy. Because sometimes you just want to blow stuff up.
I mean, yes, blowing stuff up is fun.
But ultimately, when it comes to a tabletop game, and especially in a scenario like this one here, where we're not only playing it for us, we're broadcasting it to people. And to me, my first goal is always, I want a character I'm connected with. Then, if I can do that, I'm fine. Then the next step on that is, okay, let's create a character that the rest of the group has a connection with. And then for most games, that's perfectly acceptable because you're not broadcasting it to a larger audience. You're just having to worry about the 4, 5, 6 people you're playing your tabletop game with. So if you have a character who everybody in the group has a connection to, then you've done something fantastic. To go to one step further with being able to broadcast this to people, if you have a character or characters that not just the people playing the game have a connection to, but the people watching and listening have a connection to, then that's on a whole nother level. And to me, even when I'm playing in a game where we're not broadcasting it, that is my goal. Is I always want to have a character who, if this was out on like a big streaming thing, a Critical Role, you name your pick, I want a character that people would have a connection to. And to me, that goes into the sort of another thing is especially in a superheroes game, having humanity, or having that sort of the fatal flaw, as it were, something that makes your character, whether they are or not physically, something that makes them human. And whether it's the virtues that they grew up on, whether it's, a mantra, like, for example, Batman not killing, things like that. Those what makes them human and what makes them relatable. And to me, from a character perspective, something about the character needs to be relatable. Might not be the same for everybody, but that's just for me personally.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, yeah, you can definitely see it. Like, I feel like you can definitely see that come out when you're playing a character like that. Like, for me, personally, when I've had that story that I've really wanted to tell people about my character, I felt so more connected to him than with a character that, you know, maybe I did create, but I just kind of thought up real quick and was like, okay, I'll play this because it sounds cool, and have like no backstory for the guy whatsoever.
I mean, and to that front, I'm gonna use go back to the issue, and I know in our discussions you guys have heard me talk about this all the time. But even in the group I play with in real life, I've been a part of hundreds, thousands of sessions, and I always go back to when talking to people about about success story and just all around fantastic sessions. I keep going back to Paradise Lost because it was a session where this is a tabletop game, and for the most part, it's quote unquote combat driven. There was not an ounce of combat in that session, but yet, to me, for my money, it is the best session I have ever, one, GM'd, and two, been a part of in general, because the story that was told, the role play involved in it, was top notch from everybody involved in that episode. And to me, that issue specifically with this story was the one that sort of cemented everything of, okay, now we're less a team, and now that sort of that character, that family concept is now in here. Okay, now we've got something. And sometimes, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just love that episode.
Yeah, as someone who's very new to this, the combat was very important for me at the beginning, but that episode is where it really turned for me as well. Like, you can see it if you go back and watch the early episodes. Very quiet, very out of the game until we hit combat. But that episode really turned me more into the RP session side as well.
Well, here's the thing about it, and it sort of goes exactly what TGE was talking about, is anyone can sit there, throw stats on a sheet, min-max their characters, and go into a battle.
Mm.
The role-playing is where everything happens. It's where you become invested with the characters. It's where the audience becomes invested with the characters. If you have a very shallow role-play session, you don't care what happens to them. If OPT is a very shallow role player with Lutra, you guarantee that he doesn't invest all that he's invested with Lutra. But
Jim, how many faces was it now?
13 was probably not a bad estimate.
But with all that OPT is invested, now TGE does something in campaign to slight Lutra. Well, that kind of actually hits OPT on a small level, saying, hey, that kind of sucks. I hate that. And it's the same with Phantasm. Like, if, for example, if there were something that were, and I know I'm going to end up paying for this in a future episode, but Phantasm's character has very few people that he's close to. And if something were to happen to one of them, I personally, as a character, or as the player of that character, would be actually pretty irritated that something happened at that level. I mean, and if I'm not, then I'm not playing my character correctly. If I care more about what happens to my character in battle and how many crits and, all the memeing aside with Dark and his rolls, or when I roll bad, or, when TGE sits there and manipulates the D20 to only roll 15 through 20, like, if that's what I'm cared about, caring about when I go into a session, then there's something wrong because I'm not going to get anything out of that session. Also, if all I'm remembering at the end of a session is how many crits and critical misses I've had, then that whole campaign is not going to be memorable. So that's why you really want to be able to become invested in your character, and that's why you want to build your character first. You want your character to grow organically out of something rather than being forced into a certain role because of the abilities you give them. I mean, you can have someone with, maximum statistics in charisma, but, if they're an ogre, while that might be very, very funny, charismatic ogre, just for the sake of being a charismatic ogre, doesn't really work.
Only if he has a pet donkey.
I mean, you could always be Mr. Barrington.
Oh yeah, that's a trope.
Wait, are we talking about Baby Pun Pun too?
Not familiar with that one.
No idea.
Baby Pun Pun, for lack of a better word term, is the min-maxer's dream. It's pick something, min-max the heck out of it, then min-max the min-max. That's Baby Pun Pun.
But who min-maxes the min-max of the min-max?
You'd be surprised.
The GM.
Yeah.
No. So to back to the whole, feeling a connection to characters. As the GM, it's a lot harder for me because I have so many moving parts. I have to make it so that you hate my bad guys, but I have to do it in a way that it's not you hate them because I keep fiating their escape. It's you hate them because they've done a couple of things to you, and you hate them because, they've done these horrible things to people you care about. At the same time, I also have to create people you care about. Like the entire two-part arc we just had with Dr. Casey and Hunter, that doesn't work if you could care less about either of those characters. An arc like that doesn't work unless you've taken the time to establish the characters and establish, who they are, what their complications are, what their motivations are.
I mean, you're the first DM to get me to actually care about a computer AI system.
To be fair, this is actually the first campaign I've had that had a computer AI system, but
I mean, I don't think that's incorrect either. But still.
So
the emotion's definitely high for sure.
Yeah. So funny thing about that is that is initially, like at the very beginning, that was just supposed to be an AI, and it was really just a way for me as a GM to interject a little personality and have a little fun. And then the more I thought of it, I was trying to figure out, okay, and this goes back to these sort of a different sort of variation on building is, okay, you have Thomas Casey, okay? He spent all this money on nanotechnology and all that. Why is he doing this? And at the initial point, it was just I was using him as the way to get everybody together. But I hadn't thought of why he is doing what he's doing. What is his motivation behind it? Why would he take the time to no longer... Because I knew what his backstory was, because Thomas Casey, the concept of Thomas Casey was a PC that I had used in an IRL game. So the whole concept of the Black King, all that was in his past from an IRL game of mine. So I already had that, so I knew about that. I never had in this game the why is he doing what he's doing. And I was trying to figure it out. And then, of all things, I was watching a Mega Man Battle Network speedrun. And that's... No, kid you not. So Mega Man Battle Network speedrun. So the two characters in Mega Man Battle Network, obviously Mega Man and sort of Lan. Well, in the game, Mega Man is this digital reincarnation of Lan's twin brother, whose name is Hub.
I did not know about the Hub thing.
Yes.
I didn't know about, they had a big story in that. But...
Yeah, that was the real in Mega Man Battle Network 2. So that got me to thinking, And that's when the hub name sort of came out. And then it was at that point, I'm like, well, we have this as an AI. Let's sort of increase this. Let's just double down on it. And since we had already started calling the AI hub, it was at that point, I'm like, I have to find a name that fits with the initials HUB. So that was a lot of scrambling on my part and sort of pseudo-retconning things to take something that was just supposed to be a little anecdotal fun and turn it into what to me is my favorite story point as the GM. More so than Kismet, more so than any of that, the Dr. Casey hub and all of the team's relationship, that to me is my favorite story point. So to sort of continue on, like I know, I'm pretty sure everybody in here but Nora in some capacity has GM'd a little bit. Am I right on that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Okay, so the NPC concept, the sort of understanding, like, not building villains to build villains, but build villains that have their own motivations.
Mm-hmm.
That's another trap a lot of people fall into, me, in my opinion, is, oh, well, this guy, these bad guys are going to stay and fight because, well, they're the bad guys. Like, yeah, I mean, if it's a pack of mindless goblins, yeah, they're probably going to stay and fight to the death because they're mindless goblins. But the more intelligent your bad guy is, the more of, this is a losing battle, and I'm not going to die. I don't want to die. Let's get out of here. Or having a bad guy be a bad guy, not because he's evil, but because his or her ideals are different than that of the parties. How do you guys, as GMs, go about creating your bad guys in a sort of meaningful way where they're just not generic throwaway bad guy of the week?
So I don't have the most experience with this because I've only technically DM'd one game that's had like the most overarchingly odd bad guy out there, but to be fair, I fell into that trap because I was a new DM, and I would just throw hordes of enemies at all the players, and they just kill them all, and we just move on because that was D&D, right? It took me a long time to understand that whole concept. In fact, I don't think I really understood it until near the end of the game I was DMing. That, you know what? Sometimes the bad guys do actually run away. And that's okay. That can happen, and that's fine. But the big bad guy I had in mind, outside of like the evil goddess who was controlling everything, was actually my own player character, who I played in the game before I took it over.
You're welcome, by the way.
Thank you for that. Yes. And that actually made him really memorable because to all of the party, save for one person, he was really important to them. And then his soul got taken over by the evil goddess. So he was the face of the bad guy, without actually being the bad guy, really, but he was the face of the whole evil in the world. So my party wanted to save him, but didn't know how.
We also wanted to punch his face in.
Well, you did because you didn't know it, quote unquote. Your character didn't know him, unquote.
So
he also was very smug, but he played it well.
So what you're saying is OPT made a character whose face is very punchable.
He really was.
Okay, moving on. No, so Cham, same question to you over on the GM side of things.
I've run a couple of campaigns now. And I have been guilty, too, of making, like, the bad guy of a week or, like, the bad guy who's a bad guy thing. But what started to happen to kind of make my bad guys or NPCs be a little more threat dynamic is, probably not surprisingly to you, the players. Case in point, there was one combat that I had in mind for the party where they were going to get ambushed by, like, a random street gang. And OPT already knows what I'm leading up to, but they were ambushed by the street gang, and the party started fighting them, and one of the players had taken a vow of pacifism, and like really just wanted to heal people. And so in the middle of combat, this player goes over, and she saves one of the enemy characters from dying. Like, she stabilizes him, and tries to heal him back up. And so, after these two sides are fighting together, like, she heals one of their own, and suddenly have the street gang, like, looking at this and thinking, wait a second, she's healed one of their buddies. Like, they're kind of a little bit outnumbered. This is a really weird situation for them to be in. I think they may start backing off here. And I suddenly I thought, like, this doesn't seem right for them to keep fighting. And it wasn't.
Yeah, that was a very interesting dynamic we had.
Yeah, we had a weird group. We always do. But I always like the idea of making villains that... I always like the idea of basically making, like, not anti-heroes, but rather... I think of the villain as the hero. As in, like, what are they trying to accomplish? What is their goal here? How does they interact with the party? And kind of play it that way. Like, don't make them maniacally cackling evil, but give them goals and have them work towards it. Yeah, you do those much better than I ever could.
If you want a soundboard, just let me.
Will do.
Crim?
Well, I haven't DM'd a lot, but when the longest campaign that I DM'd, I entered the DMing session wanting a way that I could have bad guys that actually meant something. So it wasn't to the point where, every single bad guy I created had a specific motivation or anything like that. But the way I constructed it from the get-go is I sort of made an antithesis to every single hero that was being run. Not an exact opposite or anything like that, but basically when you looked at the basic build and concept behind the character, you could tell that it was in direct opposition of one of the characters. And then I took that and I was like, okay, now I know who their main rival would be if that's the way it would play out. How are they going to interact with every other character? Are they going to try to befriend another character and try to turn them? Are they going to completely ignore the character? And I basically had a specific motivation of how they are going to interact with every character individually. And basically, as the players built their characters, I sort of built the NPCs to sort of counter how they would interact. So if there's a character who was, beautiful that one of my NPCs would have been completely attracted to, and they were scarred up in battle, then maybe that NPC, the next time they saw it, would actually be sort of crushed at the fact that someone they saw so much beauty in was no longer beautiful or something like that. And I sort of built their motivation, and every interaction the characters had with that specific NPC was based off of that. And those NPCs, the main bad NPCs, I always looked at more of an RP baddie rather than a combat baddie. The combat bad guys, I was always, building as if they were going in with the realization that they probably weren't going to come out of it, so they were going to fight to the death. But the ones that I had invested a lot more in, I was a lot less concerned about their combat interactions than the role-playing interactions.
And that is awesome and crazy, and yes. It's pretty much what I can say about that. So, we can go on. I've had numerous discussions with numerous people. I can go on. You could give me 6 hours and I could talk about this. But ultimately, the whole discussion is leading up to, in theory, we'll have a one-ish shot, maybe a little more, depending on how things end up next week. So the concept of how to build a character and building a character and all that is sort of been leading up to this. So OPT.
Yes.
Are you still planning on being in charge of this one shot next week?
I have an idea.
Okay. So, at least for me here, for the character side of things, at least to know a little bit of what we're dealing. Nothing a huge plot, nothing huge, crazy, plot points, but so we can have ideas. What are we getting ourselves into?
At a very, very basic level, stopping a bank robbery.
Ooh. Classy.
So I guess the one final question I will ask is, as heroes, are we going to know each other, or do you want us to have peers who already know each other, or not?
Honestly, I don't care if you guys want to know each other or not. As far as I'm concerned, you don't actually have to be, like, known superheroes either. Like, my thought is, nobody called y'all. You're all just kind of around the area and something happened, and each of you have your own motivation for wanting to help out. If you want to. Or if you want to have your character called in, that's cool too. We can do either one of those for each of you.
Sounds
I
pretty
like
open.
and that thing is, I love the openness of that. And the wonderful thing about a concept like this is, oh, hey, we do that. Hey, I like working with you. Like, let's do this again sometime. And we, as a player thing, we can.
Indeed.
So I guess because the rest of us sort of have characters who have done this before. Cham, I guess we'll go to you here. What are your thoughts on and for character creation sessions? Me aside here, you don't necessarily have to have the group discussion like we're having here. If you're playing a game here and your group doesn't have a chance to meet like this, but you can send text like, "Hey, I'm playing X. I want to play this." You can always do it that way. But to be able to have the discussion like this of, "Oh, I want to play this. I want to play this," so no one. Not that you can't double up, but so that people aren't stepping on each other's toes for their sort of main gimmick, if that makes sense.
Does make sense. I do like the idea of a session 0, though, in general, like getting people all together to kind of sit down and talk about, like, this is what we want to do, this is kind of my lead towards it, and, like, what ideas do you guys have? What are you bopping around? So that is super useful, I think.
And I guess that was that question I'm asking. What are you bopping around?
I don't really have much. Like, I had a character idea for a while, like for a superhero like campaign idea, but I don't want to use him just here. And like when I have like ideas, I've played around with like the little hero lab a little bit to try out some of the different kind of builds and different kind of like abilities, like see what sparks any kind of thoughts. And like one of the ideas I thought sounded kind of cool. This is going to sound really stupid and cliche, but I saw the movie Deadpool 2 not too long ago. And there was a really awesome scene where they had a hero, technically, who had luck-based powers. And, like, she has this big scene where she, like, just plays around with probability. Like, all these impossible things happen around her. I thought, that sounds like real fun. Like, can I do a probability-based hero? Like, somebody who just manipulates other people's luck? Like, have the villains shoot themselves and have, like, bullets nearly miss her and do crazy things? And I thought, how do I do that in Mutants and Masterminds? I looked at it and I said, there's not a lot I can do to make that happen. But it does make me think of maybe the idea of, like, having somebody who maybe plays around a bit with the, maybe the concept of luck a little bit. But I don't know, I like the idea of manipulation, like.
Oh, there's absolutely ways to sort of do the whole luck manipulation thing. It's a little bit, it's slightly more difficult in concept to execute, but there is definitely ways to do it. There is an ability called luck control.
I saw that.
And the other thing with Mutants and Masterminds is the sort of the abilities themselves, like the base abilities, are generic.
Yes.
And it's the descriptions that make them what they are. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the bullets nearly missing you could be the fact of you have this aura around you, and in game terms, it increases your dodge and your parry, your defenses. Right. And in description terms, it's at the last second the bullet veers off and just misses you, and that's the sort of luck manipulation side of it.
That is true. But it's also a costly thing, though.
Yeah. From a mechanic standpoint, it's just this, but from the description of what it is, which to go back to GM for a second. That's why when you guys watch and listen to this, you hear me a lot of times, I give these descriptions of what's happening. And that's kind of why, is because the description, the world, the flavor, that gives everything. That's sort of like what you're going to sink your teeth into. That gives you the imagination. Mm-hmm. So that's absolutely something you can absolutely do. Not just manipulating the things around you, but manipulating and almost to a sort of point of like mild to moderate telekinesis, allowing you to manipulate things a little bit farther out. Not necessarily the luck behind them, but just sort of manipulating them.
Right, making it look like it was something effortless.
Exactly. So I mean, that's definitely something on the spectrum of that can be pulled off easily.
My other thing, though, that's kind of bopping around in my head is I'm trying to think, like, do I go off type for me? Because I'm not sure if you can tell by my icon, but I tend to play a lot of animal-based heroes, or like heroes that just don't tend to be human. Because that's kind of the comics I read growing up. Like, I read Sonic, I read like some Rocket Raccoon, I read like Captain Carrot, like all these random animals that would like.
What? Hold on. What is Captain Carrot?
It's I think it's called Captain Carrot and the Zoo Patrol or something. Basically, it's like the DC animal superheroes that are actually based on like actual DC superheroes. Like I think Captain Carrot was literally Superman, but he was like a rabbit, and it's ludicrous stuff. They actually brought it back like about maybe like 5 or 10 years ago and made them all like just really terrible people. But starting out just like it was a regular funny animal comic where they were just like animals save the day fighting against super villains, like.
So it's like an actually somewhat decent Howard the Duck.
Yeah, there he is. Hey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my word. You guys can't see it right now, but this picture is the most 80s morning cartoon ever.
That's the kind of stuff I used to read as a kid. And so when I think of like heroes and comics and stories, like that's where my brain immediately goes. And so I'm thinking like maybe I should try to go off type that and do something a little bit different for the one shot. So that's also where I'm kind of thinking.
By the way, Species is completely open too. I can figure it out.
I have no words for that rabbit.
He eats his carrots every day.
For those of you who can't see this,
Oh no, they're going to. Hold on a second.
Okay, and OPT is going to put the picture on the screen. But basically, it looks like a massively buck-toothed Bugs Bunny in full yellow spandex with 2 carrots in holsters on his side.
There it is.
It's ridiculous, and it is amazing.
Yes, it is.
I really kind of now want Chammy to play Captain Carrot.
The further adventures of.
Oh boy. And next, Crim's going to do a corgi with a Green Lantern ring.
I think it might have been.
You're gonna what?
I said, and next, Crim's going to make a character that's a corgi with a Green Lantern ring.
Yeah, but no, I'm completely open to like whatever you guys want to do. If you want magic to exist, it exists. If you want like super tech to exist, it exists. I don't really care. I'll make anything work for this.
I don't take Crim as the corgi type.
Well, Hope Corgi is a meme, and I didn't want to go there, so. And no, Crim's definitely more Bulldog, you're right.
Definitely not Bulldog.
Oh. So speaking of, what are you thinking?
Well, my first thought is actually it's sort of 3 things that sort of play into each other. My first thought when OPT said about it is that my character would actually be someone who was just a patron in the bank at the time that it happened, not even knowing that he had any special abilities. And that the stress of the whole ordeal would be what brought them out.
Are you reading my mind, sir?
But
Please say no to that, because if you are, it's really creepy.
No. But in addition to it, one show that I really loved years ago when it was on was Heroes.
Oh, that's a good show.
Oh yeah.
So I sort of like to sit there and think of the concept in terms of that, and like sort of how their abilities came about and stuff. And it would actually give a great chance for me to play with the powers of my all-time favorite comic book hero, who is Gambit.
Ooh.
So being
Good
able
choice.
to sort of use kinetic energy would be sort of the build that I would think about going with.
I like the concept of that. Just please no Creole accents.
I didn't say I would be Gambit. I said I like the powers of Gambit.
Nora, I have a little text here that says you have a good idea, so...
Well, that may be overstating it. So, the character I have in mind is a rookie mage. Their first time out without an apprentice. Or without a supervision.
Oh, I like this
Ooh,
already.
that's fun.
Are you going to be the Sorcerer's Apprentice giving us the mops?
He's gonna have like a giant mage hat that he
Let's just say his mastery of the mystical arts is not what it should be.
Nice.
Oh, this is great. So, funny thing is Chammy mentioned something of sort of going off brand, and I definitely want to do that because for those of you who watched, Ven is on brand for me. The sort of the range combatant sort of healing support style character that is 100% on brand for me, and I definitely want to sort of try something a little different. So, hitting the Wayback Machine here, before this campaign actually started, I wasn't supposed to run it. Somebody else was supposed to run it. And one of the character concepts I had floating in the bank was somebody who had this, a relic of some sort that gave them power. Sort of like, I know I'm going to get upset for saying this, but sort of like, Isis's necklace type of deal. So it's the amulet, it's the necklace, it's whatever it is that gives them these powers. And similar to what Krim was saying, the not knowing that they have these until the stressor hits, that was definitely something I was sort of thinking into. Some sort of ancient artifact of some sort that gives these abilities, but only triggers to start with in time of crisis. So something like that is what I was thinking of. Now, what the abilities they generally give, I don't know yet. But that's where I was sort of concept, and that's completely off brand for me. Like the nope, I don't have magic. I don't have any of this. It's like
It seems like a fun place to start, though. Like the fact that the action of Crisis brings these things out, and it seems like something we're kind of consistently thinking about.
I mean,
that was one of my favorite things about Heroes, is that a lot of the powers came to them in situational circumstances. It's not like they just knew they had them. I mean, something happened that made them realize that they had these weird powers.
Kind of like an X-Men, like I actually remember like a really cool scene. I don't remember which movie it was. Like you have these kids pushing around like a nerdy little dork with glasses, and he was getting really riled up. And like they push him into a bathroom stall, and like suddenly this little kid's had it, and like he's like eyes like explode out with these red beams. And like it sends Billy to the hospital. It breaks a wall down. It's like that was Cyclops. He got stressed out.
He got mad.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so if it helps at all, let me tell you a little bit about the location that you guys are going to be at. Because I'm not making this up on the fly, but I've been thinking about it most of the night. I'm calling it Middleton City, USA. That's because it's middle of nowhere. That's fine. Population...
So basically where I live.
Right. Population, not as small as where Krim lives, but not as large as, say, New York City. Somewhere in the middle. The bank we're talking about Not downtown. No, not downtown. In a slightly lower populated area, but still a prevalent, location. Not as much foot traffic, and not a high crime area either. It's kind of unexpected, if you will.
Just in the middle of town.
It's just in the middle of the town, in the middle of the city, in Middleton City.
Yeah, I'm changing. With you saying that, I just had a great idea.
Good.
This sounds like a Dr. Seuss game.
But continue.
I mean, at the moment, that's all I've got in my head at the moment. I mean, I know, I have plot ideas and whatnot. I have to actually sort through.
I think the information I want is on my laptop here for a character, because I know you might find this a surprise, but I have a file on my laptop that is just character backgrounds.
There you go.
Shocked on that.
And I have a fantastic idea for this. And so the basic of the background is this is a kid who's 16, 17, whatever, and him and his mom, they live on the wrong side of the tracks, like super poor, no money, like they do what they have to survive, and sometimes he does things that he's not necessarily proud of. I have the whole backstory, but basically, that's sort of like down on his luck, and this is on brand for me, the whole down on the luck vagabond. That is completely on brand for me, but I haven't done it in this game yet. And so he ends up through fate, whatever, has this sort of magical rune sort of imbued into his body on his hand, and it glows. So every time it uses the magic, it's just another reason for people to give him crap and all that. So my thought is why he's there is he's at the bank to do the same thing the other people were doing at the bank. They just beat him to robbing it, so now he has to choose what he's going to do.
Exactly.
Nice.
That's exactly what I think I'm going to do.
That's
I like
actually
that
funny
idea.
because before I even mentioned about like my character just being a patron at the bank, I was actually considering my character to be one of the robbers themselves who really actually wanted to take out the rest of the crew and make away with all the money himself.
Can you tell Crim and I have the same thought process and a lot on these
I'm
things?
not proud of this.
I'm not proud of it either, but it's funny.
Honest to God, if you want to do something like that, I can try to make that work. I wasn't thinking of any one of you being in the party itself, but screw it. If you want to do it, I'll figure it out. I'm not even kidding. I will figure out some way to make that work if it's where you really want to go. I'm perfectly cool with you guys. Actually, it would be awesome to have at least somebody start in the bank. It looks like I'm going to have that. So we can actually see like the events as they unfold. Because otherwise, I'll just show up and it's already in progress.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go with my initial idea there, but I just thought it would be kind of fun to not only to have a character that sort of starts out on the evil side, but also to figure out how to get that character to that hero point.
Right.
Like, during the battle, would have to have a change of heart or something.
Oh, I actually already know how that was going to happen. Like, I have a complete... Like I said, I already know what's going to happen. Well, not what's going to happen. Phrase that. I already know my big bad's motivation. I just have to make him. Because I don't know what he is yet.
Oh no, I do have him on this computer. I don't need to break out the laptop. Hello, Harrison. Good to see you again. Yes, I have things named too.
Hello, Harrison, my old friend.
We're not saying TG has a lot of spare time on his hands, but apparently he has a lot of spare time on his hands.
Yeah.
That's what DMs do. We make extra characters.
Oh yeah, you never know. You never know when you might need it.
Like, I got like several characters made for games where I just went to the character builder and thought like, this would be kind of cool for the party to encounter. Yeah, I might want to play them someday. Then you got your standard list of 100 names you might pull out someday.
Oh, you know me and naming NPCs.
Oh, yes, I do. As in, like, not naming them until they appear on the screen.
There's that. And then that's how we get names like Smithy the Smith.
And Wizzy the Wizard.
Wizzy the Wizard.
And Revy the Revenant.
That was not me. That was Pat. And that
It was your fault.
It was my fault, but that wasn't me who made that up. And someone was not really happy that we called her character that for like what? 4 months? 5 months?
It was a good long time.
It was a long time.
I mean, I think TG just moved his character into the Discord.
I think he did too. Oh my
Just
goodness.
part of the backstory.
Okay, you do
I mean,
watch that.
You wrote a 100 or 200 some plus page backstory for Ven. I don't. This is like nothing for you right here.
Oh yeah. No, this is already pre-prepared. Like I have Harrison ready to go.
Well, la-di-da.
Alarming in some ways.
Wowzers. That's some commitment.
So it would be really great if you guys could get me like at least the basics of your characters by like Thursday as far as like actually built. So then I can actually like take Friday to figure out how I want to like incorporate all of that. And then I don't have Saturday to use, so I'm going to be doing a lot on Sunday, I think.
So we are going to be playing this then on Sunday.
That's the
for
plan. Sure. Next week, we're stopping a bank robbery. Maybe.
Probably not. But we'll start some adventure.
Exactly.
It starts with the bank robbery, and we go on a totally different direction and end up, saving a crashing ship from, a crashing plane from hitting a steamship somewhere in the Atlantic.
Right.
I mean, to be fair,
There you go.
We started with a sea monster on Bay City in a dock, and we've time traveled twice, 3 times.
Well, you've done
times.
3 times. Yeah, Fans died 3 times.
So every time I time travel, Fant dies.
Right.
Which Fanta?
Lutra's developed depression, and
And Malkier still can't solve that Sudoku.
right.
Well,
By the way,
considering
okay,
you burn
there you
it,
go.
he's never going to solve it.
It's true.
Well, what he doesn't know is Hub secretly replaced it with one that is unsolvable.
That sounds like Hub.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know it.
I think he'll never know because he's bad at it.
Be able to figure out, like, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't actually work logically.
Or he does figure it out, and then he turns in, it's like, look, it's all right. And then he's told, actually, that's all wrong because it was made to be unsolvable. You wasted your entire time.
Yeah, so with that, do we want to, we've kind of gone over our theories of creating a character and the Bay City world, and now this new adventure. How do we want to wrap this up for the night?
I think the way we wrap up every night. With a cliffhanger, of course. And a bright flash of white light.
Oh, but wait. No. I have a question though. I have a question. I have a question.
All right, ask Cham.
What's your
He's new
question?
here.
Oh, Chair, it's great. Oh gosh, it's great. I've seen so many of your pictures. They're amazing. They really get my fur color really well. I love that. But
You're welcome.
but I have one question for you that I've really been bugging me since you started drawing me, and I had one little question about that.
Fire away.
Okay, so why is your icon why are your eyes blue like that in your icon? Because that doesn't make a lot of sense, because I don't think raccoon's eyes are blue.
I think they're glasses. Yes. The blue eyes are glasses.
Okay. I see. I guess you see too.
Very well, in fact.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Great. Well, thanks. I was really curious about that.
You're welcome.
And
Thank you,
Phantasm
Ludra.
slowly walks over and takes the remainder of the Swedish fish.
Hey! Give that back!
And with that, everybody, thank you all for watching. Tune in next week when the same crazy bunch of random characters is going to be doing this, but it won't be my voice leading the charge next week. It's going to be OPT's voice leading the charge next week, which is going to be very interesting.
I apologize immediately for that.
It'll be exciting.
So on behalf of our crazy cast of characters, CrimsonAvix, Chameleonice, Noraystra, and OPTLawyer, I am the Green Leaf Effect, reminding you to, of course, as always, keep hailing.